Meeting to order.
Oh, is it?
I'd also like to announce that we had an executive session prior to the meeting to discuss real estate issues. Would we like to stand and do a pledge of allegiance? And a moment of silence.
Get there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
If I can augment the executive session.
Go ahead, please do.
In addition to discussing a matter involving real estate, the Borough Council also met in executive session to consult with the Borough Solicitor with regard to pending litigation, the matter of 213 Primrose LLC.
Thank you, sir. Okay. First item is public comment. Do we have any public comment for the online?
If you're joining us online, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to address council.
I guess. All right. With none, then, we have item 3, a consent agenda. Items 3A through H.
I didn't know that we have anything. I'm sorry, you asked for online citizens. Do you think we should ask for citizens present that have anything?
Public comment.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry. Say again.
Public comment.
For people online.
Public comment for citizens present.
And people online. I thought I indirectly asked for that, but do we have any public comment from people on the Zoom or whatever meeting?
Here. In here.
In here for the people in here. Sorry, Scott.
I'm sorry. Well, they're present here. That
Right.
I've asked for both. Do we have any comment from people present here and people that are digitally here? We'll call them.
Or here in spirit.
Or here in spirit.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. I certainly appreciate the.
Mr.
Inside.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion to approve the consent agenda items, A through H.
A through H,
Can I pull one item out of the consent agenda, please? My question.
please. Which is it?
Well, my question now.
Go ahead.
My question is the emergency operations plan. In the emergency operations plan, it talks about the incident commander, and there are 3 different police, the fire, and emergency. Who decides who's the incident commander?
Sorry, I'm Jeff Wallen, emergency
How do you know the answer, Jeff?
That depends upon the type of incident. Chief Martin may have incident command over a police incident. Chief Clouser as well may have incident command over a fire or hazardous materials incident. So it depends. That is determined. You could
If
actually
there's a
have
fight as who's in charge, who gets them in?
No, there won't be any fight.
All right,
In
okay.
fact, there's a name for that.
Sorry.
No one has to go.
Oh, it does. There you go. All right.
Chad, do you think you can take it?
No, there's actually a structure where incident command would work together under one unified command, if that makes sense to you. They'll each do their own thing, but under a common umbrella.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
We used to have those discussions at the school. That's why I asked the question.
Okay,
Thank
look
you.
for questions. Thank you.
Are you good with that, Dr. Up?
I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second and a motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, presentations and interviews. Interview for the Planning Commission. To finish, coincidentally, my term. Dory, you have the names. How do we want to handle that? This would be the first time we've done this.
Well, I believe we have 3 candidates, Robert J. Dunn, Phillip Baum, and Austin Graham, who have all confirmed that they will be present this evening.
Okay. Are they all 3 here? 1, 2, 3. All right. You want to call them in order as you have them on the...
Mr. Dunn, would you like to approach council?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I had passed on my resume with my communication of interest. I don't know whether any of you received it or not.
Yes,
we did.
But
I just turned
I have been in real estate for 40 or more years, primarily commercial development. I retired from that field about 6 years ago, and currently I am a consultant in the propane industry, mainly doing large propane installations. That was a growth out of the real estate development end of the business. I was a director of new store development for Weiss Markets, and I was a real estate director for Kroger Company for a number of years, covering Pennsylvania and parts of Ohio and Michigan. And on the development side, I was also director of East Coast Land Acquisition for the Trammell Crow Company, which is a national organization. And I feel that I can relate and add some of my experiences to the Planning Commission. And when I saw the ad, I figured, well, one night a month isn't going to hurt. Does anyone have any questions of me?
Have you been to any Planning Commission meetings?
No, I haven't. I was to a Board of Appeals meeting last year because I needed a variance for a fence in my yard.
Where do you live?
I live on Roosevelt Court.
Okay. Did that turn out satisfactorily?
Oh, yes, it was. In fact, the solicitor and the engineer wanted to know what business I was in because of the presentation I made.
Oh, well, there you go. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, any questions, I guess, from the council members? For Mr. Dunn?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest. Mr. Baum, I guess, is that next, correct?
I'm back.
Yeah.
I like the perseverance.
There we go. My name is Phillip Baum. I live at 201 York Street. I'm a relative newcomer to Hanover. I've only been here since 2015, but I've grown to really love this place. I come from a town in New Jersey, but worked in Manhattan. I've been commercial property manager for 33 years now. I have not been to a local planning commission meeting, but I have been to several in Anne Arundel County, which we finally got approval for a Chase Bank at one of our locations. I just want to get involved, like I said last time. Just looking forward to it and just giving back to this community that I really love now.
Okay. Do you have any other positions with us now at the borough?
On the Property Maintenance Hearing Committee.
Okay. All right.
So you know the process of going through the planning commission. You've been through that process before.
Oh, yes.
You know how long it takes.
I don't know how long it takes in Hanover. I know how long it took over
Maybe
a
not
year.
long there, but it's a process.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Are you still involved down there, Anne Arundel?
Oh, yes. I work for a firm based in Owings Mills, but I handle everything in Anne Arundel County for them.
Oh, I see. That's your job. That's where you work.
Yes.
This would just be voluntary.
Yeah. I also, it's not relative to here, to the Planning Commission, but I am a partner in the Cobb 51 Art Studio just down the road. And I also own a small business called Kinetic Creations. You may have seen our giant human-sized hamster wheel where you make a shaved ice. That's also one of my ventures.
Okay. Any other?
Are you on the zoning commission or?
No.
No.
So it's on
Appeals board, whenever a code enforcement issue would come up, they're called in to rule on that. They haven't had one of those for a while.
So he would work with Chris, I'm embarrassed to
Miller.
think that. Miller, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Baum? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Mr. Graham is-
Next
didn't give us the-
is Austin Graham.
Hi, my name is Austin Graham. I'm brand new to Hanover, just moved in a month ago. Currently live on 229 Broadway. I'm going to be honest, I have zero experience with any sort of local government, but it's been a passion of mine to follow, and I want to get involved. As far as my professional experience, I've been a project manager for 13 years now. I've worked with vendors, mostly in the digital sector, but I've worked with vendors, managed teams. I've had my own company in the past doing web design. And like I said, I'm looking to get involved in local government, and I saw this ad and figured I'd give it a shot.
Okay. From any of the councilmen, have any questions, comments? Any specific questions for us about any of the positions? Have you been to a planning committee meeting?
I haven't yet. I'm definitely planning on coming to the meetings and getting more familiar with the process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Mr. Graham, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I nominate Mr. Baum.
Second.
Okay. How does this nomination process work, sir?
So we follow the open nomination process. So the way the process works is that you make a nomination. It does not need to be seconded.
Oh.
And
Okay, I take it back.
And then once all the nominations are made, you vote in the order that the nominations came in. So in this case, you would vote for Mr. Baum first. If a majority votes in favor, then the appointment is made.
Then that's it.
If it's not, then you go to the next person nominated.
So then do we take, at this point, we have Barb nominated Mr. Baum.
Mm-hmm.
Do we take additional nominations?
If there are any.
Okay. Any additional nominations?
For Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Dunn? All right. Any others? I guess then, with that, nominations are closed.
Yes.
And we start with Mr. Baum. And how does this work?
So
It's a roll call vote?
If it needs to be, because you can't tell otherwise, you can do it by roll call.
And can you vote for both candidates or only one?
So we would take up
I bring that up because this question came up before.
Right, so if Mr. Baum is selected on this first vote, he gets 6 votes, then that's it. There's no other vote. If Mr. Baum does not get 6 votes, then we move to Mr. Dunn. And even though you voted for Mr. Baum, you can vote for Mr. Dunn.
Okay.
In that.
Should that number be 5?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What'd she say?
You're on it.
Way to go.
Well, Brian, Counselor Fuentes still
Okay.
not with us, but rumor has it he may be watching us online. So, if he is, hi, Brian.
Somebody's watching me.
All right, well then, so we'll start with Mr. Baum, correct? That's
Yeah.
who you nominated?
Yeah.
All right, those in favor of Mr. Baum, Dory, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Those in favor of Mr. Baum, Mrs. Funk,
No.
Mr. Greenholt,
Yes.
Mrs. Greenholt,
Yes.
Mr. Hafer,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mr. Locker,
Yes.
Mr. Ricart,
Yes.
Mr. Rowland,
Yes.
Dr. Rupp.
Yes.
Okay, we have 8 in favor of and 1 against. So, Mr.
So I guess, Mr. Baum,
Baum's the man.
congratulations. Thank you.
Perseverance pays off.
Yeah.
You have a lot of big shoes to fill in that position. The guy you're replacing was, in my opinion, really good, but
Legend in his own mind.
not necessarily in everybody else's. But
That's
thank
what we're
you.
talking about. Yeah.
But we always have other opportunities, so don't go away.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
Don't go anywhere.
there's plenty of.
Continue looking.
Well, Mr. Baum came, for several opportunities until he
It is great.
found
Great
this
people
one.
respond.
For,
Sometimes you
you know,
don't have anything.
so-
You have to go find them.
No, this, I do want to say it is very good because you're right. There was a couple of years ago, you couldn't get anybody to come in, so thank you for even considering.
We'll try again.
Yeah.
I'm claiming my roots here, so I'll be back.
All right.
there you go. Okay.
Thank you.
So, where am I here? 4B. Thank you, sir.
Open space.
All right, 4B, the open space and recreation plan update. Who's taking care of that? I guess that's Mr. Grimm.
Sure. Mr. Dunn left, but Mr. Graham, this may interest you, and we're very interested in maybe having a project manager involved in this project.
There you
Ladies
go.
and gentlemen of council, thank you for this opportunity. This has been a long time coming, as we know, and it's been delayed by COVID. So tonight we're going to get an introduction about our open space and recreation grant, or comp plan that was helped. DCNR assisted us in paying for through a grant. So tonight we have Ann Toole from Toole Recreation and her partner Andy Mears from JMT architecture firm in New York. So I'll let them go ahead and give you the presentation here. You have some handouts.
Thank you for having us. We're honored to be able to work with you on this important project. We put together a little booklet so you'll know exactly what we're doing and when. So we are coming here from a Parks and Recreation Board meeting that was extremely valuable. They're our advisory group for the project. What we're doing is looking at your Parks and Recreation system, everything, parks, recreation facilities, your organization and management, your partnerships, your financing, everything. And our goal is to work with you in developing a plan to improve the quality of life here through parks, recreation, open space, and trails. We will be having a draft close to the end of the year with our recommendations. I think the most important part of our project is that we're thoroughly rooted in community outreach and public involvement. We have our study committee, that's your Parks and Recreation Board. Next week we're starting to do interviewing. We'll be doing a lot of interviewing. We'll be doing about 3 focus groups, which is small groups of people are organized around a topic. And we have a very interesting public opinion survey. It's not a survey monkey. It's very interactive. It's very graphic and colorful. And we find that people really enjoy it. We just completed one. We got 2,000 responses. So we think that it's a lot of fun to do, and we get really good information from it. We have one event that Andy's going to explain to you coming up, where we're going to be getting public opinion.
Just as an aside, I was in our consent agenda, there were numerous approvals requests for special events, right? And we're sort of the de facto place for all of these special events. And if I looked at the addresses of the people that were requesting the special events, and maybe just coincidentally, but most of them don't live in the borough. So we're kind of doing this for all our friends and neighbors in the surrounding municipalities too.
That's interesting that you brought that up. That was where we spent about half an hour talking with the Parks and Recreation Board, looking at how your public spaces are used and what your policies are for awarding permits, for generating revenues, for offsetting your costs of the use of public spaces. So we're going to be delving into that. That's a very important topic in our project.
Okay, because like our customer base, is very diverse,
Yes.
outside of the borough.
We do think that you're the hub. That's how we would like to position you by the time we're finished, that Hanover Borough is the hub of activity and health and wellness and connections to nature in this whole area.
Okay.
So Ann mentioned that we're really rooted in the community, and a big part of this plan is getting public feedback. And one of the ways we do that is to make this very custom and very much to your community. Wherever we go, it's not just sending out the survey. I mean, we want to get as high a response. And the first thing that we saw when we visited all your parks, I said to AJ, man, Arboretum, that's just a really special and different park. So we thought a way to highlight that park, but also launch our survey, and also to get some buy-in from the community, and to launch this project is to have some sort of a pop-up event there. So we want to work with some of your groups and figure out who could work with us to make that happen. Whether it's bringing in just a couple of food trucks, setting out some tables there, we could put the survey out and really ask people's opinions about the other parks and the topics that we're going to get, that we're trying to get answered and help develop and shape the plan. So again, the opportunity just presented itself as we saw it, but it's a way to really launch the survey, launch the project, and try and get as much feedback as we can. So that's just one of the ideas we were trying to work with the committee in trying to get that going.
Aside from that important topic of figuring out the best use of public space and how we do that, is there anything else that you'd like to let us know that you'd like us to focus on? We will be asking you each to interview each of you individually as well, so you could think on that. But might as well ask while we're here, is there anything you want us to focus on in particular?
Are you going to look at where we're lacking and or where we should be considering a park that's not in a location yet, as in underserved areas?
Oh, yes, that would be very important. We look at location, we look at quality of facilities, we look at what kinds of facilities, maybe something's missing, maybe something could work better. So Andy's a landscape architect. That he specializes in that. I'm a Parks and Recreation planner. What I do is the kind of make it work stuff, the funding, the maintenance management, programming, partnership. So together we have all your interests covered. And so we would be looking at not only the facilities, what's missing, but how do they work and what kind of programs would help.
And we've looked at some of that already. I mean, we've mapped out, you're a little different. You have your parks by ward, so we want to make sure each ward is covered and adequate. But we're also going to do some benchmarks. Those are national benchmarks based not just on having enough park, but are these park sizes adequate? Do you have a strong community park? Do you need more neighborhood park? Because right now a lot of your parks are the same, and you really don't have that, other than Mount Field, a true community park. So we'll be looking at a lot of those things and making those kinds of recommendations.
Or potential pocket parks?
Yes.
Okay.
What are those?
Definitely.
They're smaller.
Is there a date for your study to be completed?
We expect to have a draft by the end of the year. And then it will go through the review process.
All right.
So, yep. It's exciting.
Do you recommend or counsel on permitting language and fees and stuff like that?
Yes, in fact, that was our big discussion with the Parks and Recreation Board, was how do we do that? That optimally benefits your community. So we'll be working with you in the development of permitting policies and pricing policies. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those questions we went over with the committee, but I'll be honest, there's so much going on here, and this plan is a good opportunity. I mean, next week you have your Trail Towns meeting coming up, and we're planning to attend that, but the idea here is recreation is a part of that. How can this all benefit and work together? So we want to dovetail with all those other initiatives, starting next week with what's going on with the Trail Towns initiative.
Historically, do you find other communities charge enough for their permits or
No. They don't, but we actually wrote an ordinance recently for another municipality on permitting. And in doing that, we did a survey to find out what municipalities were charging. And some of them kind of blew me away, and it's all based on cost recovery. We found one that was as high as $75,000 because it was a special commercial event. And it was all about cost recovery to cover your costs, what it takes, plus revenues to support Parks and Recreation based upon the fact that it's a business, a private business benefiting from the public estate. So, but we do generally find that the fees are undercharged. So we also work on helping you figure out what your costs are so that we know these are your costs and this is how you recover based on different classes of people. Yeah. Organizations.
I have one question. If I don't ask, my wife will kill me when I get home. She's big into dog rescue. And there was several questions running around about a dog park. I know there's one of the townships that's out by our Shepherd Myers reservoir up the hill. I don't know what municipality that it is, but it's huge, and that's obviously out of our scope. But could something like that be considered in what we're doing?
Yes, we're going to look at that. And we know that because you're an urbanized area, that your dog parks would be completely different than that big one. And
Right.
we really know that big dog parks work the best, but when you have people living in a compact area, they need a different kind of dog park. We also know that dog parks are very controversial. We had a project recently where the next day the engineering company's servers went down because so many dog people on either side wanted to comment on it. So we're open to that, and we'll figure out that policy, about how we hear on that. And we would actually help you figure out whether to do it or not and how to do it in a way that you can handle.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I have a rescue dog myself.
I have 4.
Oh!
And no dog park.
And no dog park. Well, by the fenced-in backyard.
Would you like to host a dog park?
Well, maybe. I wouldn't mind contributing to one.
That's good to know. Anything else?
Do you suggest also in the small parks that we have, different types of renovation to improve those parks for the use that it's, okay, you have certain uses, which is we have very small parks right now, and they're limited to children. And I know that we have had teenagers ask us about different types of skateboarding and that type of thing. So I just wondered whether that would be in the plan or you would be looking at the advisability of adding new ideas.
Yes, we're going to look at all the parks and do a general assessment of everything that's there, conditions, things to think about, and recommend upgrades to bring them into compliance, whether that's ADA are meeting, consumer product safety guidelines for playgrounds and things like that. We'll make those general guidelines to get them up to code, but we'll also look at the possibility of major renovations if they're warranted. If we have new facilities that come out of the survey, we'll help determine where those should be considered.
And where do the particular ideas come from? Do they come from the wants and needs of the community? And when you are looking at the wants and needs, are you recruiting ideas from the entire town? And how do you go about doing that?
Oh, we have a great, we're so with you on public engagement, is that we do lots of interviewing. We do focus groups, like you mentioned teens. We're going to do a focus group with teens. We have our Parks and Recreation Board that's extremely valuable to us. We're doing a public opinion survey that will be really interesting. It's very interactive. It's a lot of fun. It's not a survey monkey. It's a lot of fun. The pop-up event, we do pop-up events like Andy was talking about. So we tend to go to where the people are rather than having them come to Municipal Hall here. Yes, we go where they are.
So you would go, say, to a school?
Yes.
And hold in,
Yes.
and get their opinions
Yes.
on what they would like.
Definitely.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
when we did, in an adjacent municipality, we did a playground renovation, and we went into the school and worked with the 6th and 8th graders and got some feedback. And we do that routinely on playground type projects.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
If we take the kids' drawings, and when you see the site, you could see where it came from. Yeah, it's very, yeah.
Lastly, hopefully, neither one of you strike me as individuals that need to be encouraged to get out of the box. But that being the umbrella, which I'm about to say, I'd appreciate if you don't look at this just inside the borough. We have, this municipality has access to a plethora of lands outside of it. So when you start talking about concepts like dog parks, the land that we own outside in other townships, now granted you can't necessarily walk to it, but don't let necessarily that hold you back. Please identify need, and then we have creative open space right now that could be duplicitous in its utilizations. Also, I've always been a big fan personally that we have a school district that also has facilities, recreational type. Now they're governed a little more severely than we are because of childhood protection. But I would also encourage you to maybe look at getting outside of ours versus theirs, that kind of box. See how we can build cooperative initiatives and infrastructure together to combine all of those concepts. Let's do it one time and knock it out of the park.
Because we have to President Rieger's point, we and our school district share the same boundaries, which makes us rather unique.
That's awesome.
Pretty good over that.
You get so much more done that way. That's great. We're working with another municipality right now, and we formed a partnership with the school district, and our partnership is on joint programming for tweens and teens between the hours of 3 and 6. And we've gotten 4 partners involved in that now.
Great.
So we'll be looking at things like that. We actually got some grant money, too, to figure that out. We can help you with.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be calling you for
All right,
interviewing.
we'll be here.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, item 5, I believe 5A. I believe we have that one finished.
Right.
5B, fee increases. Mr. Maines?
So these fee increases will break into 2 pieces, the first of which we'll deal with is parking, the second of which we'll deal with is your building and zoning permit fees. The issue relating and revolving around your parking fees is going to go back the entire way to the study that this council commissioned back in August of 2020. If you'll remember, at that time we put together a sort of top-down assessment of your parking program. We looked at everything. We looked at not just a space count, but we looked at how you were managing your parking and identified a sort of hierarchy of strategies that you guys could use to modernize the parking experience. Certainly as this borough grows and it redevelops, and those are all the things that we want, we need to make sure that the facilities that are needed to support that growth go along with it. So In that light right now, one of the things that's certainly happening is we are continuing the progress on the Passport mobile application. So we are moving your parking to a system where people are going to be able to access it through their phone. They're going to have those conveniences at the business to be able to, swipe it over and get additional time if they're eating a meal at a restaurant or something like that. Those things are happening. One of the things that we now need to address is we need to get your rate structure around your parking up to where it needs to be. Because currently it is not there. And in fact, where it is right now is actually detrimental to your parking, to your businesses. Because when you have low rates, what you promote is you promote people staying in one parking area and just sitting there. Because why not? If I can sit there for an entire day for 50 cents, I'm probably going to be inclined to do that. So that's not healthy from a business standpoint because you want that turnover. You want that fresh people coming in, spending their money, and then moving on from other things. So at this time, what I've laid in front of you is a sort of suite of different rate structures for the parking. And ultimately, this lives inside of your fee resolution. So what I'm looking for from you is ultimately approval of that fee resolution with those new parking rates in it so that we can then put those into the Passport app and we can look to keep that project moving. So with that, questions?
I got a question. I got one. What about the kiosk that we were going to do? Is that a dead issue, or are we sticking
Absolutely not.
Sticking to the individual meters? No.
So up under the consent agenda, under item F3 tonight, you guys agreed on the purchase of the MacKay kiosk. We picked that kiosk very specifically because it is fully integrated with the Passport system. They're different companies, but their products actually communicate together. And what that does is that's going to give your parking patrons the ability to go to a kiosk and they can use a credit card, they can use cash, they can use coin, they can use tap and go with their phone. It presents a number of different ways that they can engage with your parking system. There'll be two of those. They're both currently going to be over at the PNC lot. One will be on Carlisle Street, one will be on Railroad Street. It's sort of a pilot project. If they're successful, I think the idea would be that we'd pick them up and replicate some additional ones maybe in the square, one down Frederick Street and elsewhere to keep that experience for your patrons. So not a dead issue at all, very much alive.
I talked to Mr. Maines about this afternoon for, I don't know, half an hour because I was concerned about it, and I was very impressed with the analysis that he had done and the sense, that it makes for us all. Because, I mean, quite candidly, to have parking meters that require change, maybe on strange, we won't debate that point, but the fact of having change in your car, nickels, dimes, quarters, if I have any, it's in the cup holder and it's glued in there somewhere with coffee and soda and basically unremovable. So this gets us, change is still an option in this, but this gets us to be able to use credit cards or tap things or what have you, which I think is a plus. And the other thing, I was in a meeting, I think it was in Gettysburg about a month or so ago, and the meeting ran longer. I had put X amount of money in the meter with a credit card, but it came back to my phone and it says, beep, you're about to run out of money in the meter, and all you have to do is push the button on the phone and, bang, you're good for however much longer of a period that you want to extend that to, so you don't have to run out and do, whatever. To me, that was exciting. I think to a lot of towns, that's pretty much expected anymore. So,
I think this says we're coming out of the dark ages.
Well, yeah, I didn't really want to go there, but
we're coming out.
Absolutely, I think this is a
plus.
plus.
The last point I'd want to make, too, is that this entire process of moving through this was not done entirely with inside of our department. We actually did, through a series of polls, reach out. If you guys recall, you took one of those polls. So we got some council feedback. We also used Main Street and the Chamber to help us push another poll out. We, as of this morning, had reached out to 92 businesses in the borough and solicited feedback. Over 2/3 of them identified that parking was an issue. for them. Both the experience was an issue as well as the availability of parking. And then in a larger sense, you heard mentioned earlier the Trail Towns meeting that's happening soon. Well, Trail Town did a survey of necessary improvements, and they got some 460-some people took their poll. 61% of those people identified that parking in the downtown borough was problematic and needed to be improved in some way to support the Trail Town bringing additional people in.
When you say, I'm sorry, when you say problematic, as in finding or just
finding it, the experience, paying for it, the sessions,
lot.
everything, the entire experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think to your point, Chuck, we need to far better identify them. They need a branding or something or another.
Well, and I'd like to bring up a point of conversation that we had at EDC, is that we are putting this parking system in place. The fees that come from it, I'm just making a suggestion because we know how council members are and how things go, but I'm making the suggestion that this funding be actually lockboxed into using for our parking lots. So it is the funding that's used to match grants, to redo our lots, to get the stormwater in them, to improve them with lighting, and not that it just goes into the general fund and just kind of vanishes into something else.
I mean, I would second that, but I can assure you, is Amy's here, we know what our income is for parking by parking lot, correct? And this will now give us the ability, correct me if I'm wrong here, Eric, to know not only how much we are taking in, but what day and what time of day.
The statistics on it.
Right, which makes the information a whole lot more valuable. And what was interesting to me in speaking with Eric, our parking revenue last year was $111,000, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah.
And what's that?
No.
Oh, okay. And that doesn't include permits, right? What I found interesting with that is I remember back 5-ish or so years ago, maybe 6 or 7, this is BC, before COVID, our parking revenue was $60,000 or $70,000. So with static parking rates over that period, if you look at the volume and increase, is that gives you some indication of the increase in activity in downtown.
Right.
Just literally in Nichols.
I guess my point too is that we do have a lot of people coming in from the outside to our downtown for the breweries and stuff, and that our citizens will be paying. That I think them seeing a dedicated funding to parking like stormwater should be considered. I don't know the process and by which we would do that, but I think it's something that we should seriously consider, because then at time we'll be able to match those funds with grants and their actual see real opportunity with
do
it.
some things to make our parking spaces look
Right.
nicer
This
too,
means-
more attractive, yeah.
With this system, is the price flexible? I mean, can you
You thinking time of day, day of week?
increase during an event maybe, or does it have to maintain a?
The pricing that is built into the platform, so it's not something that's very easy to change.
Okay.
But certainly, we came back in a year and we said, hey, I want to make it $1.10. We could go back to the Passport programmers and say, hey, I need you to go back in and change this. It's not something that's instantaneous where we can sort of tweak things and say, okay, well, for this event, I want it this rate, and then go back to another. That's not that.
But it is variable time of day, day of week type of thing, correct? Or not?
It is not.
No, because you got to remember the meters are still going to work. They're going to have to be adjusted to take the time and the coins. So by changing it on the Passport on the app, you can't physically do it on the meter, because it's still going to give people the options to use coins for those that have coins.
The other thing we were trying to do as we kind of envisioned this rate structure was avoid confusion. And when you have these multiple and varying rates and things like that, it gets very confusing for the user of that to understand what rate they're paying. And so we decided to really just kind of try and keep it very uniform so that you have a pretty good understanding of what you're going to pay for that session.
Okay.
And Eric did explain in the EDC meeting that we're going to phase this in and weren't going to just nail people right away with the new rates. I think some people are like, oh, wow, what's going on? And be education. And
yeah, when these
he did a great
systems
job
go
of that.
in, there is typically in a community, there is a period of time where you back off on enforcement to allow people to adjust to the system so they can start to use it and understand how to work with it, as opposed to just being out there ready to hammer them if they don't use it correctly. The other thing, too, is we are working to develop a series of frequently asked questions that we're going to try some public outreach so that people are aware of, why are we making this change and what is happening and what's going to be different, and kind of answer those things before they get a chance to ask them. So we are working on that currently.
Harry, one of the things is, like the brewery uptown, supposing they were holding a special event,
Yes.
could they rent so many parking areas through their brewery in order to supply parking for whatever specific event they have, and also included, at times the borough had free parking for individual events that they felt, that it was worthy not to charge the people to bring them uptown. Are we still going to honor those things?
So those are going to be program decisions that you guys get to make later as the program evolves. They're not things we need to know necessarily for Passport. The Passport system does not have, and we asked this question, it does not have an electronic bagging system, like where you would put a bag over the meter head and say, okay, it doesn't have that. The way that you would manage that would be, as we do now. If somebody wants to, and certainly they work with AJ and Lori and say, okay, well, we need to bag these meters for a certain time. If it's appropriate, then we make arrangements to do that. As far as the other things like the holidays and some of those other things that come around, that really doesn't come down to a Passport issue. It's just a program issue. You just decide we're not actively enforcing parking from this date to this date.
Right.
We're just not going to do it. So the meters are still there and running. People just aren't maybe necessarily putting money into them at that time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Maines regarding the parking? Then you want to
Real quick, the building and zoning fees. So if you'll remember my speech from last month, we've been cleaning up the building permitting program, and we've identified that we needed separate zoning permits and separate building permits. So we've done that successfully. We've got all of that up and running. I think today we're up to 17 zoning permits so far, which is impressive considering we're only about 2 weeks into it. But we don't have a fee in the fee schedule that addresses those. And so we need to, by this ask now, correct your fee schedule to have a fee for someone who is applying for just a zoning permit. The benefit for the resident is, previously when you would come in to do something like a small shed or a fence, you would come in and get a combined building and zoning permit, and it would be based on the value of the project, and you would pay out for that. Now you won't do that for a fence or things that are non-UCC related. You're just going to pay for a zoning permit. So it will result in a lower fee for the average user. But we do need to clean up the permit fees in order to accommodate it, because I can't legally charge fees until they're in your schedule.
All right, thank you very much. Nan, you want to talk about, Nan, or you want to have Amy talk about items C and D, I believe?
We need to make
Yeah.
a resolution. Yeah, we need a motion on the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Resolution.
We need a motion to approve 5B, item 1 and 2.
So motion.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Does that need to be a roll call?
No.
Does not? All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries. Thank you very much, Eric.
Okay, you have two more resolutions that I'll discuss with you. The first is to appropriate $3.5 million in ARPA funds to the 2022 general fund budget. And the purpose of this is so that we can expend it in 2022, and then I'll discuss what happens with the excess money in the general fund in the next resolution. But if we take care of it this year and do a parallel action next year, then the funds that become available will not be encumbered by restrictions and timetables. So the first resolution is to appropriate the $3.5 million in ARPA funding to the 2022 general fund budget.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Any comments, questions?
So you're saying we have to spend this, or is it just being encumbered into the general funds?
So what happens is, right now, we have the budget, and it is fully funded with the tax revenue, fees, and all kinds of other revenues. And we're asking that the ARPA money, which is sitting in a separate account, go into the general fund and pay for police and fire services and get done with the reporting requirements, the timelines, and all of that for the federal money. But when we do that, there'll be excess funds,
Okay.
which allows us to do the second thing, which is really significant.
Which just, Chad, this doesn't mean you have $3.5 million more to spend. Just to clear that up.
Disappearing.
You're talking millions, baby.
Yeah, for about 2 minutes, right?
We got a second.
All right.
We got a second.
We have a motion and a second. Does this need to be a roll call or? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Thank you. Motion passes.
The second action is to approve a resolution to create a capital fund. And the purpose of the capital fund is very much what you've been talking about with the use of ARPA money, which means it could go to take care of some of your building needs and other things. We specifically did not include a lot of language about purpose so that you could decide at a later time. I think that when those of you who've toured the police station know how desperately we need to take care of our buildings, and that will be a matter of discussion in the coming months. So this is to create the capital fund. It would ultimately mean over the 2 years that you would have $7.5 million in it. You could also put money from your general fund reserve in it. We're checking to see if that matters to Moody's when they do your bond rating, and we believe it does not. And this will be just a real boon to the borough to have money, just like the parking fees that Mr. Hegberg discussed, money reserved so that you don't have to borrow the whole thing. You have match for big grants. So this is a real asset for the borough. So that's what the second resolution is about.
Scott, I'm going to so motion on that.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
It's a quick $7 million.
I think it's great. It's
No, I
a
think
really
it's-
good thing for the borough.
It's good. It's kind of, jiggly around, but it gets things the way we want it. Item E, the Water Resource Department organization. You want to update us there?
I would
please?
like to do that. Unfortunately, Mr. Relke's family situation became such that he did not feel he could do a good job for the borough and maintain his employment. So we, do not have a director for that department. It's interesting because it feels like such a loss, but we had nothing before. So I'll tell you what we're doing so far and would love to hear any suggestions. We would like your agreement that we advertise for this position again, and we know how difficult it was to find anybody interested and qualified before. The second thing we would like to look at will be somewhat controversial over time, and that's why I'd like to just bring it up, which is to look at potentially contract management and how that would work for finding a firm with expertise in the management of our systems and see what that would cost. And it would not necessarily mean that the employees would work for anybody but the borough, but we would at least take a look at what is involved with contract management of our systems. So
I think that's prudent.
There are
Comparison
places
keeps us on our toes, if nothing else.
Yeah, we can at least know about it and know if it's a feasible approach. And in the interim, Amy and I met with the and Eric and AJ met with the water resource supervisors, and we talked yesterday about how this experiment was in their eyes. And they, along with our engineering firm and others, said, yes, it is good to have one point of contact for these businesses. So the staff did all seem to be pretty consistent that that was a good thing. Going forward, it will be back to where these supervisors report to the borough manager, and I'll be putting together an inventory of all of their projects and work and issues. They will report to me for the purposes of accountability, but also getting the support they need to do their jobs, and you'll hear a couple of requests tonight. So although it's no different from where we were before, it feels like a world of difference not to have one person responsible for that. And I think it just shows we were on the right track, and we will look at both the options of hiring somebody as well as potentially finding a firm that does this for their business.
It's like a business unit manager role,
Yes.
if you will, that would have essentially P&L responsibility.
Yes, and out of our discussion yesterday, and one of my goals is to protect the asset we have in Eric. Before we had Chris, the whole world came to Eric to solve everyday problems in engineering, and I will use his time. I will be the person that everybody has to go through before we access his valuable time, as well as our engineering firm, because we use Gannett in many ways as a supervisor for our departments, which isn't a good use of $200 an hour time. So,
Man, one of the things that I believe Chris was working on and doing the evaluation, I don't know if you got it, he was doing the top-down review of everything, right? And the one element that still concerns me that we need to figure out how we're going to deal with is a safety program. I mean, tailgate talks, OSHA stuff. I mean, we desperately need to have crews and people trained appropriately, and for our own insurance reasons, we need it. So I know that was something that he was going to be looking at.
it started already.
Yes.
Okay.
So he did do an evaluation for really prioritize what our safety needs are for in each of those departments. And so we've already begun the process of becoming members of PA Rural Water Association, who does a lot of the trainings and certifications. And we have a large group of our distribution and I&I crew, guys, about 20 people, I think, at this point, are doing a shoring and trench certifications that they never did before.
And we're including
so that was
Public
headed by
Works as well?
by Dale. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good.
So we are working towards that. So
Thank you.
yes.
And thanks for bringing that up. That I mentioned to the staff yesterday that even if we weren't budgeted for it, we would find a way to take care of that, because that's, especially with trenching and shoring, which is the first one we're dealing with, it's really important. Now, for example, in Public Works, they have been doing some routine safety programs, but it is not consistent.
We are documenting it all, right?
We are now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So that's the update.
Then that doesn't need any vote. Item F, the PUC outside borough water rates.
Mr. Schultes, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So as you know, the increase rates have been approved by the PUC, and so they become effective earliest March 28, 2022. There is a notification requirement 1 day prior. So once that notification is made, if it's made prior to March 27th, the new rate starts on March 28th. The problem is that the borough has an ordinance which sets the rate under the old rate structure. So we have a situation where we have a new PUC-approved rate structure and an ordinance that approves the old rate structure. So we have to fix that. The idea is that we want to fix that effective March 28th. To do that, we need to enact a new ordinance by March 28th, which requires Borough Council to meet in session to take that up. On March, well, on or before March 28th. But we need to advertise the ordinance in advance, so I think the best case scenario is to try to meet on March 28th.
It's a Monday. So are there
For that
6
purpose.
people available?
I'm sorry?
Just for that purpose.
Yeah, it will be a special meeting of council. There will be one item on the agenda.
Okay. So would like a motion to do that?
So motion.
All right, a second?
Second.
Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, looks like,
What time would the meeting be?
Well, that's to be scheduled with council's schedule. So, it could be any time of day, but if it's best to do it in the evening,
Yes.
we can do it at 6 o'clock or
Others work.
Yeah.
now with, what do you call it, Zoom attendees, to have a viable meeting, we still have to have 50% physical attendees.
Correct.
So that means a quorum would be 6, so we'd have to have at least 3 in the room.
No, I think we need to have 6 in the room.
Oh, okay. So
6:30? 6:30 would be better for me. I have a board meeting at 6.
Okay.
But I'm just one person.
6, is that,
Get out of it.
Tim, is it too early, or 6:45, or?
6:30 will work. It lasts about 10 minutes.
That's a quick.
What time, Tim?
Could you say that louder?
6:30.
6:30?
I don't know how long they
The
last.
board meetings for the school district, 10 minutes.
Thank you.
That's why you
Just want to have on the record.
Thank you.
How long have you been here?
10 minutes.
It took 10 years of
10
getting,
minutes.
it took 10 years to get there.
My dictator was my dictator runs around.
Chad, can you give Tim a speed, an unlimited speed permit? Right, so the 28th at 6:30 here?
Yes, here.
Jory, would you send out a meeting notice, a calendar thing, please?
Yes.
That's outstanding. All right. I'll move on then, item 6.
Yeah.
Did I say? Advertise an ordinance to appropriate $30,000 from the 2022 budget for the HEDC. I guess I need a motion in favor of that.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is that you, Tim?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
sir.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're opposed?
Yes.
Okay. 8 in favor. Mrs. Funk is opposed. Item 7, police staffing, approving the filling of the new vacancies. Sorry. Damn it. Approving the filling for the police department of new vacancies as they arise, not to exceed a total of 25 sworn officers. Chad, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
So council approved in the budget 2 officers to be hired in the 22 budget. We're currently going through the hiring process. Within the last 3 weeks, I've learned that we are losing 2 additional officers. One is not a surprise, the other was a surprise. And in addition, due to a new program by a newly formed regional department in the county, I learned that 2 additional officers are looking at that department because of the incentives they are offering. So therefore, we could quickly be in some pain.
What is the incentive? Can you?
Essentially, this department is offering 10 years of service, to credit 10 years of service. So an officer could leave here, they have 6 years of service, they'll be credited that amount of service, and it would walk into that department's pay rate at that time. It's my understanding that if they leave here with 10 or more years of service, they walk into that department's 10-year rate. They are making $5,000 less than our top patrol officer, which would take them to year 20 to get to. Can't compete with that.
Well, now my understanding was we were one of the highest paying departments.
We're not, I mean, we're well paid. We are. We're not the lowest paid, but we're not the highest.
Even accepting York City.
Well,
whatever, it's a discussion
anyway,
for another matter.
So the concern is, obviously, we would be looking at next month's meeting to request council to direct civil service to direct them to forward a certified hiring list out of the list of however we need to hire, which, with the two originally, council agreed to hire, we would need 3 candidates. Now, looking at this, we're trying to stay ahead. So if we hired those 2 that council agreed, that would put us to 25 officers. I really believe, and it's my recommendation, that we do not fall below that level if we can. One, and most importantly, is officer safety, and 2 is just what the services we provide to the community would be lacking. So losing these 2 officers puts us back to 23, and we haven't even hired those 2 yet. If we end up losing the additional 2, that puts us into mandated overtime. Then because of vacations already taken, and we're already down to minimum staffing.
Could you define for me what a sworn officer is and compare that to your current census that you have?
Well, right now we have 23 sworn officers. That's including myself, the lieutenant, sergeants. Because anybody it takes an oath, is hired by council, takes an oath to be a police officer, goes and gets the state training, and can enforce the laws of the Commonwealth.
So how many employees do you have that are not, what's the total census?
We have 3.
You have
3. We have 3 what you call civilian employees. That would be John Roser, the evidence tech, and Miss Roberts and Miss Weaver.
Okay.
So the request is based on, looking at those numbers. If they occur in between council meetings, I don't want to have to continue to come back here. Again, council would be apprised of the situation, because ultimately use vote to either hire or not hire prior to them going to the academy or putting them on the street. So there is a level of control there. We are also looking at, with the numbers of the test this year, the consortium is also looking to test again in September, late September, for the January academy. So we got a little bit of a reprise. HAC moved their academy back to May 31st. So we have a little bit more room to work. And the potential is that there's enough people there that we could get 4 candidates, which we're looking at right now, that we're going to need to hire to stay at that 25 level. If the other 2 leave, I'm not so sure. If those candidates need to go to the academy, they're in the academy until December 2nd. They're on probation until December 2nd, 2023. And if we have to hire them after that, and they have to go to the January academy, we're now pushing into 24. So I don't want to fall back any more than we have to.
Who pays for the tuition at the academy?
The borough has traditionally paid for the tuition for the academy. Now, if there's also there's 1 or 2 on the list that are certified, and we would not have to pay for that. So just the breakdown here, not taking into account that the 2 officers that the borough has agreed to hire already, the salary of the 2 officers that are leaving, that have committed to leave, totals $107,881 for 2022. The salaries for 2 new hires to replace them, to include the academy cost, is $86,27, which is a net to the borough of $21,853. In addition, they're being hired under the new step process through the arbitration, so they would not be gaining, the level of salary that officers have seen in the past. So the borough would be seeing additional savings.
So it's a flatter salary increase curve than it was.
That came out of the last arbitration ruling for their contract.
Could you help me understand how someone who is, like the list that you see are people who are finished the academy, then there are some people on there who are already done with that, right?
Right, so we get, on the list, I get a spreadsheet, and on there, it has on there, are you Act 120 certified, which meant they went to the academy, yes or no. That's how we know.
So if I'm a policeman in, I don't know, somewhere in Pennsylvania, I have to get on that list.
You still have to test.
You still have to be on that
through,
list.
You still have to go through the testing
Okay,
process.
all right,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
I really am.
Because I would hope that you continue to look for diversity in hiring. I know that's challenging, as you shared so nicely before, but just if
We
you
are,
continue to
and
look
just
at
to
that.
let you know, I mean, so Civil Service did certify an eligibility list that has 52 candidates on right now. Right now, we're in the preliminary processes. We reached out to 39 of those candidates. 22 at this point have confirmed continuing the process with us. And we didn't reach out to all of them. The first 39 we did. In addition, 5 were already hired by police departments. 1 was hired by a fire department. 3 were not interested in our agency, and 3 have yet to respond back. So we still have about 14 left if we have to. The top 9, the first 6 are veterans. The top 8 of the 10 are veterans. The top
Veterans,
10,
you mean as in we're in the military?
yes. So they get veterans preference, which means if they pass through the process, we have to hire them.
Right.
Out of the top 10, they are all males. 2 are black males. There are 5 females on the list. The first female that comes up on the list, I believe, is at the number 18 spot at this point, and the second female is number 22. But, I mean, lists are fickle. They go quick. We found that, 50%, usually close to 50%, fail the polygraph. So, there's opportunity there.
Thank you for that information. Thanks.
So I guess then I need a motion
Scott,
on.
I'm going to motion.
You are
Yes,
in favor.
I am.
All
Yes,
right.
Second.
absolutely.
A second. Any discussion? Does this require a roll call? It does not. Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. All right. AJ, you're back on the hot seat. Wants to open his own Royal Farms.
I'll hold my comments there. So this is just a repair I wanted to bring to council's attention. This is a repair to our fueling station. I put together a memo for your packet. Maybe some of you folks were not aware that we did have our own fueling station. This repair is covered by the 2022 operating budget. That may mean something else that happens in the future, may not be. We are pretty early in the year, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. At this point, the low bid is $11,000. We are still waiting on one other quote. We expect the bid that we have at $11,000 to be the lowest, and I'm asking your approval to move through with this repair to repair 2 manhole sites over the fuel pumping station that are encased in concrete. And these need to be able to hold the weight of our fire trucks and our bigger equipment, things like that. So this is pretty priority repair.
So moved.
Second.
A couple questions, if I may. I was jokingly at Royal Farms the other day, and I happened to see the post office had 2 or so mail trucks in there being refilled. So, do they know a secret we don't know, or why do we do that ourselves?
So the Postal Service is not an emergency response team or first responders like we have to serve. They also have federal government priority, so they get a hold of some better deals maybe than we could get. They still pay quite a bit more. But I can tell you from my knowledge of it, with the borough being able to control our prices through bidding, that what we are paying per gallon is probably much likely lower than what the post office is paying there.
And a heck of a lot lower than any individual is. We get.
Correct.
We don't pay the tax.
So just to give you an idea, the last bid, $1.77 a gallon. So even as things went crazy and volatile and up,
Can I fill up there?
right, that's where we were.
Well, we say $1 of that's tax in Pennsylvania, just as an aside. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. And no other questions? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. Governance and policy. The policy on board and committee appointments, recommendation from staff is to adopt that.
Recommendation from the committee, the governance committee, to adopt it.
Or the committee, I'm sorry,
Unanimously
Barb.
agreed that that would be a good process for us, and particularly focusing upon what we're striving to do, looking for diversity, looking for people who keep coming back and get involved, and for new people too. So I think that policy covers both the gentlemen are here this evening. And it's very clear as to how, and sometimes it's like, how do we do this? It's sort of, just
I
sort
think it
of,
was important that we did have a
yeah, it's sort of
guideline
clear,
that
sort of
you
what we did. It's just in writing now.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve,
In
yes.
favor and a second?
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Number 10, public safety. A is the engine brake retarder. And let's go for the gold here. Coalition Against Bigger Trucks, approving the letter. We want to adopt the ordinance about the brake retarders and approve the letter against bigger trucks. Can I have a motion in favor? So moved.
Yep.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right.
What is, Scott, what is the coalition against bigger trucks? What's that letter?
Those double
Letter was in our letter.
Sue, would you, or?
Yeah, I had a person from the Coalition of Bigger Trucks approach us to help send letters out to our people in Congress and Senate against, because they keep wanting to make the size of the tractor trailers bigger and bigger, and therefore, when they come in on our roads, they tend to tear up the roads more, which becomes our responsibility to repair. Also, a safety factor, even just like think about the downtown, you make them even bigger. And when they are involved in accidents, they tend to be more deadly the bigger the trucks become.
Good point.
So when you say bigger here, does this include tonnage as
Yes,
well
yeah.
as size or length?
Tonnage and length, both.
Length and tonnage.
Both, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different size
Yes.
big trucks?
Well, and other states, and I don't know if we're one or not, allow tandems, meaning two trailers, and I believe there's some now that are talking about having three.
Oh, okay.
Out west, and three.
So I don't know if we're one, but
Yeah, right.
True.
Okay.
and I think, one of our challenges is truck traffic through downtown, which in a way is good because it's indicative of the business level, but it's.
You gotta have some trucks, it just, they don't wanna go bigger.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I think the way the town's built, if you'd have those double and triple,
Oh, yeah.
for them to
Well,
try to
right,
make
the
a
house, the
turn.
town was designed for horses or wagons.
Exactly.
At the time
There
it
you
was
go.
done. I mean,
That's
no
right.
one's fault, but.
Right.
Okay, so can I have a motion in favor of 10A and B?
So motion.
And a second?
Second.
All right. We've had our discussion, I guess. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Number 11, Water Resource Department. For the wastewater treatment plant, there's a request to approve a purchase of a new centrifuge.
No, actually, this is me pinch hitting for the guy that left, so let me correct this a bit. This is not to approve the centrifuge, but the gearbox for the centrifuge. And the last time we had the
Oh, so it's a new transmission, if you will, for the existing centrifuge.
Yes, and the last time we had it repaired, it was $40,000. They're hoping that by getting it done now, that it won't be as much.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're a pushover now. Okay. Request to assign new priorities business to Borough Council committees as suggested by council members and staff, if any. I'll take the fault for that wordy thing something and would be willing to withdraw that from this agenda to maybe put a little more definition around it.
Yeah.
All right?
No argument there.
No argument there? Okay.
Not sure what you meant, but we'll talk.
Right. Our next agenda
He knew what he
review,
meant.
He knew
we'll
what he
bat that around a bit.
All right.
Number 13, reports of council members, council committees, and other public bodies or any bodies. Do we, Sue, do you have a,
I did the Coalition for Bigger Trucks.
all right.
Good.
Anyone else? Management reports, other than what we've already seen, which I think was pretty good. Any correspondence and information? I'm pushing for 8:30 here, Bill.
I did want to say about next Thursday night is the Trail Towns public meeting at the library. Let's see what time that starts. But it'd be great if everybody wants to come out and take a look. They're trying to get some public consensus too of what people want.
Dory, would you please send out a meeting, a calendar thing for that, please?
I read, this is 6 o'clock. I read
She did.
somewhere. I might be wrong. I
Send
didn't know
out
the
a-
date. I could be wrong. I don't know. 6.
Can't remember if it's 6 or 7. Scott, can I bring up also that we, now that we're into March, that we get some bids to improve the audio down here?
Yes.
Okay? Because we didn't have time before, but I think we do now. But there
Okay.
should be bids, correct,
I
Scott?
agree with that,
Thank you.
100%.
Okay, very good.
Any additional public comment from those that are here, physically and digitally?
6 o'clock.
Digitally, a fair statement. Fair enough. Right, anyone here physically? Okay. There's a Gabe Wirtz and a Justine Trucks.
You can unmute yourself.
All right. I guess with nothing, we'll assume that's good.
Motion to adjourn.
Number 17, may I have a motion to approve number 17 adjournment?
That didn't take long.
All right, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and tolerating this. But we, yeah.